Welcome to Cheese in Depth. I'm Michael Landis, and today we're really fortunate to be able to spend some time with Beechers Handmade cheese. And today I'm really excited to be able to spend a little bit of time with Brian. And he is a American Cheese Society certified cheese professional, a certified cheese sensory analysis evaluator, and a cheesemonger to the 9th degree. So it's really exciting to be able to have somebody on that speaks our language, and we'll have a lot of fun. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian and let him get started here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Brian.
Hey, Michael Landis. Thank you so much for having me on. This is fantastic. My name is Brian Gilbert. I'm the head cheesemonger for Beechers Handmade Cheese here in Seattle, Washington. What should I say? Let's see. I'm, as Michael mentioned, I'm a ACS CCP. It's an American Cheese Society certified cheese professional, and an CCSE, a certified cheese survey evaluator. That's a newer certification that Michael has as well. We took it. It's a hands-on approach to tasting, and which we'll do a little bit today, cheeses. And pretty much an all-around cheesemonger is the base of what we call ourselves. So, yeah.
Brian, how'd you get here?
Wow. So I would go back, let's see, maybe 15 years ago. Let's say about 10 years ago, I started working at Mount Townsend Creamery in Port Townsend, Washington, where I used to make, opened up the storefront, made cheese a little bit, learned everything I know about cheese. And then many moons later, I ended up at Beechers Handmade Cheese, and Kurt Beecher Dameyer, the owner of Sugar Mountain, is the umbrella company for Beecher, so I'll speak to that as well. But Beechers Handmade Cheese in Pike Place Market, and Kurt gave me a big blank canvas in which to do pretty much anything I wanted in the cheese world. So still today, I'm still doing it. I've been with Beechers for about 8 years. I work at the cheese counters. I work at all the different locations. We have about 5 locations when I think of it as far as Beechers goes. We have the Pike Place Market, where we started in 2003. We have the second creamery to open was in New York, or is in New York. And we're grateful that upon COVID, we have reopened cheesemaking in New York, and that's great. We have plans to open the cafe again in New York as well. And that's, it's on 20th and Broadway in the city. So if you're ever in New York, check that out too. And with both the locations, which we'll talk about in a few slides coming up, we have full-on cheese making happening. So full transparency to how cheese is made at both locations in Seattle and also in New York. We have a couple other locations. One is in SeaTac Airport across from Alaska in C2 terminal. We have one in Payne Field here in Washington. It's a smaller airport that is just getting off the ground again, no pun intended. And then we have a Beechers in Bellevue Square Mall here in Seattle as well. So those are the locations we have for Beechers. Hopefully going forward, we'll have some more, but we're taking it slowly. And my beginning to Beechers was walking in the door and working at the cheese counter, like so many of our cheesemonger friends have. And that's the story. We get to talk to customers every single day. Thing I love the most is the interactions with the customers. But since at Beechers Handmade Cheese in Seattle specifically, I can look right across from the counter and see cheese being made. So as that's happening, I get to tell the story every single day. Of course, we have a full cheese case. Right now it's at half capacity. We're starting to grow it as we check in with all our cheese friends and creamery, dairies, seeing what they're doing through the pandemic. Some not so great news, some amazing news. So please support them. Please keep going forward, because every time our cheese case gets stronger, every time we can bring new cheeses back in again, ones that we weren't able to carry for a little while, but our customers are building back up again. So at Beechers Handmade Cheese, Kurt Beecher Dameyer started, I like to begin the story with, he loved Pike Place Market, and he loved the idea of showing full transparency to how food is made in the market. So at Beechers Handmade Cheese, if you haven't been, you're in a lively market that's very colorful, full of flowers, full of fruits and vegetables and meats, anything you would normally expect in a market. And it was a perfect place, we're right on like Pike Place, overlooking in a brick and mortar building. There's a picture on the right side. You're seeing a picture of a lot of people gathering around, looking in the window, watching how cheese is made. And then on the, at least in my screen on the left side, we have the Flatiron District, Beechers Handmade cheesemaking operation in New York. And with both locations, you can look in and watch the entire process happening. And let's see, at 4 in the morning, maybe a little bit earlier, a milk truck will pull up at Pike Place Market, also in New York. And in Pike Place Market, the streets, as some of you may know, are kind of steep. So there's a hill, and gravity actually helps take some of that milk out of the truck. And if I can use my best analogy, it's kind of like a fire hose, but a milk hose going into a latch or a hatchet that's on the side of the building. You can kind of see it in the picture that was on the right there, but there's a lot of people standing right in front of it. So milk gets pumped into a weigh tank that has, we normally say, just to round off the numbers, about 40,000, well, we get 40,000 pounds of milk every day. Now that gets divided up a little bit. We have 30,000 pounds roughly, give or take, that is in the holding tank. And we have about 10,000 pounds that'll go right into the make vat. Now the make vat is you can kind of see it through the windows in that picture. It's a really big 10,000 pound milk tub. It looks like a bathtub in a sense. What we do is we pump the milk in there and we start the first batches. At Beechers Handmade Cheese, we make 4 batches a day, almost every single day, unless we're doing some maintenance on some of the equipment. So in that first visual, that if you can picture a big vat of milk, you're looking in it, all the kids are like, they have their faces pressed up against the window and they're like, I want to swim in it. Like, do you really? But what we first do is we add cultures and we add rennet. Now, we won't go into a long cheese making talk here, but cultures, I always like to say when I'm giving the short tour, is they give it a direction. It gives the milk, or what the cheese will become, a direction. And rennet solidifies the batch and turns it into a solid. So the customers, the guests looking in the window get to see that right when they're looking in Pike Place Market. And of course, you get all the questions as I walk by when I'm loading my car to do an event like this. I hear them like, what's that? It's cheese, or it's milk now. It's going to become cheese in a little while. So what happens is there's another vat right next to it. We call it the draining table or the cheddaring table, depending. So we do 4 vats a day. And once that cheese gets nice and solid from the rennet, cultures have been added, we cut the curd. Now we use a metal frame that has fishing wire. I say fishing wire just because it's a good visual, but it has wire strung in between. And it's either called a harp, like you're playing a musical harp, or a curd knife. It just depends what type of cheese you're making. And then we cut the curd, which is a visual that you get to see when you're looking in the windows. And upon cutting the curd, you have curds and whey. Little Miss Muffet sat on her tuffet eating her curds and whey. I don't know if many people, when I do that tour, even know what I'm talking about anymore, but I'm surprised that some of the kids do. So anyways, we're cooking, temping. I like to think that cheese making is a nice mix of, let's say, science and art. A lot of us say that, because you got to keep track of your numbers. You want to know what's happening throughout the year. We pay attention to, we'll get into the milk and the farms in a minute, but we want to know what's going on with cows at different times a year. We want to know everything that there is to know about what the cows are producing, when they're producing it, how they're producing it. That said, Beechers Handmade Cheese, we have a close relationship with our farms, and they're about 30 miles away. We'll talk about that, as I mentioned, in just a moment. But to finish up the cheese making process at Beechers, and again, also the similar in New York, is we take that milk and it gets pumped over to the cheddaring table. Now that cheddaring table also looks like a big bathtub full of milk, but it's more shallow. Now that's for a lot of reasons. Once we've drained all the liquid and pumped the curd to the other side, we have one big vat of cheese, or curds. Now those curds will knit together. They want to be together. They want to connect. So as they connect, we keep stirring those so they won't. We don't want them to connect just yet. And then at some point we will salt them and it'll slow down the lactic fermentation that's happening. And then at some point we'll take these, they look like snow shovels. We'll shovel the curds and put them into these metal boxes. And these metal boxes are what we're going to press the cheese in. So we take the curds and they're lined with a cheesecloth, much like what you would find at home, but a little bit different because we want more liquid to continue to drain. So we take those curds, we shovel them after they've been salted into the boxes. We put a lid on it, and they're tall at first. We put them in this pneumatic press, and we use air because we don't want oil introduced into the facility. And then these big big pressure stamps will push down the curd. Think of block cheese. I always like to say that. You used to have to put blocks on top of the cheese to press it down. That's not the only reason. That's just what I say a lot. But we press that for pretty much 24 hours. The next morning, we undo everything, and those curds have been packed nice and tight. So that curd, that fresh, day one, creamy, lactic, nice, almost mozzarella tasting curd, doesn't taste like a whole lot. It's just fresh. Oh, actually, I have some curds right here. This is the curd. So we take these curds. Even as I open this up, oh, it smells so good. It's right from the market. I pulled these a little bit ago. And so we take those curds and we press them and age it for 1.5 years, and it becomes flagship. And they're in 40-pound blocks. So it takes 1.5 years. Kurt likes to say that this was grass yesterday. This curd was grass yesterday. Literally, the cows were eating the grass and their feed, and they were milked. And then the milk came to us, and it has to get to us pretty quickly. And then we press it, and then time. If we give it the right environment, and we've manipulated the milk the right way, and we give it the right conditions and temperature, you have your recipe. So again, a little balance of science and art. So flagship, and we'll go into this when we do the tastings as well, but is a cross between a cheddar and a Gruyere, and it's what we're most known for. And we'll talk about some variations of flagship in a bit, but if so many Americans and throughout the world love cheddar, right? And when I speak to the locals and to tourists that are coming from all over, it's so just comfort food in a sense. I think comfort food is what I would say the most, because it has a little bit of sharpness, and then you also get that nice creaminess that you find in Gruyere, and a little bit of crunchy tyrosine crystal bites, little salt bites. And we'll talk about that more when we do the tasting. But again, I like to think of this as grape juice and this is wine. You take day one, age it 1.5 years, and you get flagship. So the process at Pike Place Market at that point is we're aging the cheeses, and we have a couple different ways that we'll talk about in a minute. Our dedication to, you see a picture of, I'm going to tap into a little bit about what Sugar Mountain is. Sugar Mountain is the umbrella company that is over Beechers at the 5 properties I mentioned. We also have Mishima Reserve. There's a little paying homage to it. Mishima Reserve is a Wagyu style beef. We're also a meat company as well. The quick way I like to describe this is where the USD quality meat standard is 3, 4, and 5. Mishima Reserve is 4, 5, and 6. Has a nice tight marbling. We have a restaurant here in Seattle called the Butcher's Table, and it's just a fantastic butcher shop and kind of fine dining experience at once. And we also have some other restaurants and delis, I would say. Pasta and Company is one of our other sources. So we sell the meats and the cheeses throughout all our stores. Beechers obviously is the most recognizable one. It's the one we get to really talk about, at least the one I get to talk about, the farms and where the milk comes from. But our dedication to food extends beyond cheese. So I'm going to take a little tangent here to talk about our Beechers Foundation. Our Beechers Foundation umbrellas 2 other segments. I would say one is the Pure Food Kids Foundation, and that's the picture you saw. Pure Food Kids Foundation is an amazing program that we do here at Sugar Mountain and Beechers, where we teach kids how to read food labels in a nutshell. The Pure Food Kids, it's a free 2.5-hour workshop in the public schools lined up with the U.S. nutrition standards to teach kids what they're eating. And they love it because they get to learn a little bit about what the backs of the labels say and how to read it and serving sizes. And then they get to make food in class. We like to say, if you make it, they will eat it. So they get to experience the standard that we do is a vegetarian chili in class. They wash their hands. They learn some cutting skills. They learn the claw or the tunnel and the claw, so they're safe at home. And then they're learning washing and hygiene skills. And then they cut up all the ingredients, and then they enjoy some vegetarian chili during class. That's the Pure Food Kids. So Kurt's mission to teach, show full transparency to how food is made and ingredients are a strong point of what we do. The other side is the Sound Food Uprising. That's grown quite a bit, but let's just call it an adult version of the Pure Food Kids. So adults can kind of learn what it is that we do as a company, what it is that they can learn about their food and their food choices and their food prep and how to just eat better and be healthier. Big thing we like to say is, changing the way America eats. It's kind of a nice beginning to, when you're looking at Pike Place Market and you have a conversation topics go inward, you get a chance to really see how food is made. And bouncing back to cheese ingredients, as all the cheesemakers that we pair up with in our cheese case, no hormones, additives, colorings, preservatives, all natural, nothing added ever. Now we can have conversations when it gets more deep about what that means and how that is, and natural bacteria growth, and is mold good or bad, and what that means. And that's what we talk about when we're at the cheese counter. We like to encourage, and let me give you a little example. A lot of times people, almost always, I think every cheesemonger has this. First they'll ask, is that Parm? Inside joke for the cheesemongers, I think. Or is that brie? It's another one. But see here, this had cloth on it that I pulled off, and I'm pulling little strands, but there's also bits of mold on here too. So the number one question we often get is, can I eat the mold? And that's a bigger question. Yes, you can. Or you can trim it off and continue to eat the cheese because it's a natural part of the mold growth. Also, once it's in your refrigerator though, you might be growing some other things that we might have some questions about. So that's a different topic. So anyways, our dedication to making sure that we are staying pure to the ingredients going in our cheeses, or lack thereof ingredients going in our cheeses, and also that people understand where food comes from and learning about their food sources and their farms, and getting closer to Mother Nature and Earth and what it is we're trying to do to stay healthy here. So you're gonna see some slides here of Holstein and Jersey cows. Right now, I'm looking at black and white spotted cows are gonna be the Holstein cows. Typically, they produce a little bit more milk, a higher yield. They are often used in, well, I could go different routes with this, but let me talk about our two farms. Well, we have 4 farms. We have farms in New York and in Seattle. So I'd like to say 2 and 2. We have Groenveld Farms, about 30 miles outside of Seattle proper, and we have Green Acres Farms. Now the easy way to describe it is we have about 600 cows that are milked for our purposes on the 2 farms here in Washington, and we have about 600 or 700 cows that are milked at our farms in New York. There's some pictures of it. Looks like they look very similar to me, but they're cows, but Ohm's Farms in New York, and also a Dutch Hollow Farm, which might be the very next slide, which they do only Jersey cows. And they also actually have milk as a part of their dairy co-op for the Dutch Hollow for some of our friends like Jasper Hills, I believe they get milk from there too. Don't quote me on that. I just think that's part of it. It's north of Seattle in the general, like south, like Albany area for the most part. So I got to take a tour up there a couple years ago, and it was just amazing because the Dutch Hollow Farms is kind of more the picturesque farm. It's amazing to go there. The family, they love their cows. They understand it's a business, and they still take every aspect, take care of their cows the way we all want animals to be treated. And that's why we're aligned up with them. It was just such an amazing experience. They had a little hut there where kids could go learn. They had all the different farms that are a part of it. I think there's 5 farms, if my memory is correct on that. And they had this mosaic of pictures of each creamery. So not only are we teaching about the farms and showing what we do with our milk, they're showing about the creameries and where the milk is going. It was just fantastic. Those cows are eating a ration. As a lot of people think that all the cows are grass-fed. They are when there is grass. We grow different things during different times of the year, and the dairies that we get our milk from, they're also farmers. They're growing alfalfa. They're growing the different, all the different things that they need to build to create the diet. And they pay close attention to what they're eating because good milk will create good cheese. And happy cows, as we've heard in lots of commercials over the years, truly happy cows though, are less stressed, and they're producing good milk, and then we get to make fantastic cheese out of that as well. The other farm in New York, so I talked about Dutch Hollow in New York, is Ohm's Farm. Ohm's Farm is interesting because I'll bring this up just a little bit, and I encourage you to do some research on it, because when I first learned about it, it was new-ish to me, and a robotic milking sounds very, wow, what's that? It's amazing because the farmers, the dairy the people work on the dairy get to do a little bit of farming, and they get to spend time with the cows, but the cows basically go up to this machine essentially when they're ready to be milked. And then it kind of reminds me of a car wash. A little arm will drop down, it'll go underneath. There are laser lights that'll find the teats and will clean them and then latch on, and then they'll milk them, and it won't over milk them. It has a sensor, and all the time the cow is just, I'm imitating a cow here, I guess. All the time the cow is eating a little bit of grain that is like candy to them, kind of sweet. It's not sweet, but I mean, they like it as we like candy. And then they only get so much though. I wondered if they stayed in there longer, do they get more? Nope. And the little sensor above, when they're done, it slows down so it doesn't harm in any way the cow. And then when she's done, it stops milking, they latch off, it cleans them up again, they walk through a little puddle and they walk out. So they get to get milked kind of pretty much when they are ready. And that's a really great advantage. And then their exercise is separate from that. They get to walk out and walk around the property when the farmers and the dairy folks know that it's time. As opposed to, let's talk about tallow farms, where they do have a walk. They have a walk from different grass-fed patches that they rotate throughout. In the winter months, question we get a lot, in the winter months, they have the ration that they've created to carry them through the winter months. So they've built a combination of foods and a diet that can keep them. And then when the grasses start growing again, they just start building that back. So those are the 2 farms in New York. We have 2 farms in Seattle area. The Seattle area, we have Groenveld. Groenveld's, again, like the picturesque farm, kind of nice. The folks that run that, actually there was a commercial, I think we might be able to put a link at the bottom, I'm not sure how that works, but it's called The Farmer, the Cheesemonger, and the Chef. It's a 3-minute commercial through the Washington Dairy Association, and they did a great job. I'm all in slow-mo, like at Pike Place Market, and then I believe Anna is her name. She's the farmer, or works on the dairy with the cows, and she's showing the beginning of the day, and at the very end of the commercial, there's a little bit of the chef in Pike Place Market, basically at the Dahlia Lounge, cutting up some foods. Brock is the chef that's featured there as well. So that's pretty much our dairy farm for the most part, Michael. So check out those faces behind the cheesemaker right there. That's exactly what it looks like in Pike Place every day. Now, I almost wish there was a picture of me or one of us. Often in the background, you can see like us in the background, because we're just slanging cheese in the background. We have a cafe, so we are making grilled cheese sandwiches. We're scooping mac and cheese, what we're really well known for in the area, endorsed by Oprah and Martha Stewart years ago. So as Kurt likes to say, it turns out you don't lose money when Oprah endorses your product. So that's kind of a fun thing. Our mac and cheese is fantastic. It uses our flagship and our jack. And that's the cafe side. You can kind of see it through the window there. And the cheese making part that you saw a moment ago is basically us, or the cheesemakers, scooping those curds and dumping them into, or at least rotating them so they don't knit together right before they go into the cheddaring boxes. So that's the cheese making part that I saw. You got another slide of that. Beechers Handmade cheese is a very comfort food type cheese. It's amazing on platters. We have a variety that we'll be talking about just after this. We'll get into the tastings, but I think we almost always cut them in triangles. I don't know anybody that doesn't, because our pattern, or I know it's not patented, but it's our flagship. I don't know if it's supposed to represent a sale. I've been saying that for so many years, because flagship was our first store. It's our first cheese. We named it Flagship. We have a sandwich named Flagship. A lot of them are play on words with flag sheep, because we use a little sheep's milk in that one. But yeah, we have, I think the thing that people like the most is that they understand it. They understand that the cheddar is kind of medium, sharp, nice, robust notes of brown sugar. It's something that everybody understands. So whether they like Parmesan, or they like Gruyere, or they like other styles of cheeses, this is one that has a nice combination of cheeses that they understand and know. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for buying cheese. Thank you for supporting your local cheesemongers and your local dairies, and not even knowing it. Your love for the food that is cheese supports so many different things, including the animals. that are there for us, that give us life. So I just want to thank you for giving me a profession, a passion, a love. And we're going to go more because I'm going to get more passionate. We start talking about the pairings that Michael has and some of the ones that I've chosen here too. But just have fun with it. Encourage. This probably should be something I'll say at the end, but I'm going to say it now so I don't forget. Have fun with the world of food. Have fun with the world of cheese. Come say hello to Michael where he is and myself here in Seattle, and have a conversation with the people to make your food. They're there for you. They want to talk to you. They want, well, not everybody, but I do. They want to have a conversation, and that gives you an experience. And when you go home with that commodity that is flagship, or any of the other commodities that we have, that's a reminder of the experience you had with that cheesemonger or that chef or that farmer. And that's something that's really important to me. So that's kind of how I'll wrap into the culinary side of it, where we get to kind of put our taste buds to the test. Michael and I both have a CCSE, Certified Cheese Survey Evaluator, which is a new designation for the practical side of cheese tasting in our world of cheese. So we're going to dive into that, I think, coming up here. So I'm going to do a little